I just want to make sure everyone is in the right place. This is the session on unlocking battery circularity, standards for a sustainable clean energy future. This panel is brought to you by UL, SE, and IEC. My name is Caitlin D'Onofrio. I am the Senior Program Manager for UL Standards and Engagement. I am heading the sustainability program. Within my program, I do oversee the UL 1974, which is the remanufacturing repurposing of batteries, and UL 3601, which is looking at the circularity of batteries. So today, the panel description for our battery circularity session, we really want to focus on the secondary, the rechargeable batteries, for example, like lithium ion and sodium ion, and the circularity challenges with these secondary batteries, including the reuse, remanufacture, repurpose, and recycling. For today, I'm going to ask each panelist a series of questions. You're more than welcome to answer whatever you feel comfortable with, answer all of them or answer none, it's okay. Before going into there, I would like everyone to introduce themselves and their organization. I'll start with Luz.
We cannot hear.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Luz Maria de la Mora. I am the Director of the Division on International Trade and Commodities at UN Trade and Development, UNCTAD.
Howard.
Hi, Howard Porter. I'm a member of the Market Strategy Board of the IEC and advising the IEC on climate issues.
Hello, my name is Qishu Guang from China Academy of Information and Communication Technology, which belongs to the Ministry of Industry and Information Technology.
Hi, good morning everyone. I'm Tirthankar. I work for WRI and I actually lead the circularity and resource efficiency work in the WRI India. And this particular program actually leads the work with the multiple stakeholders, which involves the private sector as well as the think tanks, other think tanks, as well as in the decision makers. So, and I'm honored to be here and look forward to the discussion.
All right, thank you all. So I'll go right into it. The first question is, in your opinion, what are the roles of batteries in supporting global transition to clean energy, and why is it critical? Anyone want to take that first?
So if I may just start off from I'm sure like with the panel loads of experience in this quantum experience that the panel has, I just kickstart with this opening stab at this issue, is that look, when we talk about energy transition in the current context, there are few key words that are been perceived, right? And one of the thing is that yes, we are talking about energy transition, and it's not just replacing the fossil fuels with the cleaner sources of energy, right? It comes with the societal angle, it comes with various other things, and inclusivity is major part of it, right, in the context of energy transition. And in the developing countries and the emerging economies, inclusivity and energy for all is like 24/7 is a critical component. If you don't solve that problem, the energy transition is meaningless in the context of clean energy or whatever form of energy you talk about. And batteries actually batteries provide that critical solution in the context of energy transition, because any form of mature RE technologies, be it solar, be it wind, they are variable technologies, and batteries actually form that part of the thing in any form of technical problems. Like if you want to ramp it up during the evening peaks, you have the large-scale BESS solutions which can do that one. If you want to provide long hours of evening solutions or evening powers, you can actually do that also with the batteries. I think that's where the large-scale solutions lie. If you go to the rural areas in the developing countries, they want decentralized or modular kind of solutions which are for productive as well as for domestic consumptions. I think there also you need forms of storages which can be coupled with the renewable energies like storage, solar and small wind, which actually forms a very complementary role in the batteries thing, and it actually brings in the other important piece is that the pricing part. So it actually brings the price down if we consider no subsidy based fossil fuel provisioning. So if you, the reason why I'm saying that the price part is that most of the developing countries actually give a huge subsidy on the fossil fuel based energy production. Now if you do away with the fossil fuel subsidy part, actual landed cost of fossil fuel based production is much more higher than your clean energy plus battery related provisioning. So that is where your battery plus solar or battery plus wind or small wind wins. The third point is for all, which is a major political plus economic sense, because you provide not only just inclusive and a big thing for the political leaders to take this forward, but also economically it makes much more sense because it provides jobs in the odd hours, because there is a popular thinking that if you don't provide proper electricity and you are asking to move people and masses to move towards electricity based systems, and you don't have electricity in the half of the time of the day based on solar and other things, then you are basically saying that there is no solution. So batteries come in over there and provide that thing in a cheaper way, and that's where it becomes that for all kind of a solution. So I end over here and happy to talk this through more.
No, that's great. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Well,
Just-
if I may?
Yep.
Sorry.
No,
Do
please.
you want?
Yeah, I just would like to add one sentence on why it is important, besides saying from Tori, just to say this is great amount of battery. Some research saying 1.35 million tons of batteries until end of the 2025 next year. So it is great amount of batteries will be released in the market, and this is the right time we consider batteries very important. Yes, of course we say it in a big system or in a distributed system, but we have to also consider it in a circularity way. This is maybe also another very important point today, also our topic. Yeah, thank you.
And
Well, that was part of the point that I wanted to make. I think that the reason why it is critical, as you asked us to focus on, is because we are trying to address climate change. We're trying to address sustainability by finding new ways of getting energy to produce, to have the quality of life that we want for people. And we are seeing a new industry being developed with its own technological transformations that may have, or we are expecting this to have an impact, a positive impact on the environment, on social opportunities, and the quality of life of people. But it also brings up a challenge of, and that's what I wanted to mention, recycling. Recycling is also at the center, should be at the center. We cannot forget that this is a whole new cycle that may solve issues, but we don't want to create more problems, you know?
Yeah.
We need to think about all of the phases of the cycle. Thank you.
I agree. Howard, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, not particularly on standards at the minute, but in terms of the use of batteries in cars, on grids, in buildings, I think the first point to make out is that the evidence is showing that the batteries last a lot longer than was anticipated at the start. So I've been involved in panels in the UK considering what needs to happen in terms of recycling and reuse. And the conclusion was, not yet.
Yes.
Because the batteries, particularly in cars, the evidence shows they're actually lasting and performing longer than was anticipated. So maybe the urgency, I agree, it has to be done, but maybe there's some time now to actually get the system in place.
Yes.
Because I think the urgency is perhaps not as, it's not as critical as perhaps many people thought, because the batteries are performing better and longer than anticipated.
No, thank you. So going on to the challenges of recycling, and I obviously, despite all the positive aspects, I do want to focus on the challenging, specifically recycling, and how, in everyone's opinion, how can circular economy address such an issue, especially with the recycling component?
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
I think that here we have a technological challenge in the sense that there are a few actors in the industry that have been key in terms of developing the technology and developing the product that goes to the different areas in everyday life and in the production process. So we have China, we have the US, we have the European Union that are leading actors in developing the technology, in the use of the technology, and then also eventually, we hope, in the recycling of the technology. No? So we have to see this from the perspective that we have different actors developing different types of technologies that may talk to each other, but may not talk to each other. So that is creating like isolated industries or sectors. And the question here for us at UNCTAD, we see this from the developing country perspective. And from the developing country perspective is which technology you associate with. How much of that association is going to lead to the capacity of developing countries to also participate in the development of that technology. We talk a lot about value addition. We talk about how we can help, or how can developing countries take part in some part of the supply chain, not only from inputs, where a lot of the mines and a lot of the critical minerals that are used come from developing countries. How can we push forward models in which developing countries can participate in that value addition? We know value addition is very difficult. It requires a lot of investment. It requires skills. It requires technology. It requires support from government, private sector, academia. But there must be a way in which we can do that. And at the other end, we don't want developing countries to be part of that e-waste world, where everything that is not used any longer is dumped into the developing world. So I think that the recycling part and the circular economy part of batteries is essential in all part of the development of the technology and the business model. And we are working on that. We know that this is a new industry, new technology, new way of solving environmental problems, new ways of addressing the climate action, the climate challenge. But we also need to take into account that we don't want to create a new problem. We want this to be a real solution.
I agree. Anyone else?
Yeah. So I think just 3 points on it. First and foremost, I think because developing countries, or particularly the Asia region, is going to be the action hub of all of these energy transition thing. So I think from that context, I believe there is a lack of two issues. One is that fiscal support and policy focus. So these are two different issues. So one of the things is that, look, most of the countries, except for China, the other countries, are actually having a kind of having a bandwagon effect, saying that, look, everybody is going for extraction and getting into minerals collaboration and all of these things. But they are at the end using the end products of these technologies. They are not producing, or they are not making it at any way. They are using it. So they are at the end of the cycle. And if you see, none of the policies of many of these leading countries are actually designed towards how to better recycle it. Or resource efficiency, particularly in the recycling part, is currently absent. Everybody is actually replicating the e-waste rules in their own domains to actually get those things done. But that is a half-hearted approach, and we need more focus on that. And that there comes everyone's effort on that. That's the first point. Second point is that, related to the first one, is that once you have a focused idea what needs to be done, you can actually design your fiscal support on that point. whether it is going to be an incentive-based models or a taxation. My personal thing is that you have to create a positive narrative over here, because these are all clean technologies, right? And if you actually go back to your fiscal mechanisms like the old ones of the 50s and the 70s, like carrot and stick rule, this is not going to happen, because it is already the cleaner technologies and you are actually asking them to take taxation or subsidies. That's not going to happen. You have to rethink your fiscal regime or fiscal support thing. That's the second point. The third point is, how do you create business models for the smaller segment? Because they are the ones where the use is much more, because there's a huge second life component in the batteries. Like once you are done with the cars, there is Powerwall use, there is second life in the rural areas and all of those things where you need to create business models. And currently it's absent. There's nothing over there. It's very pilot phase and we need to scale those pilots and all of those things. And that is where Asia is except China, that's the whole thing where we need the focus on. And the third point is that related to the thing is that we need to think the capacity building of the policymakers who are not the entry-level policymakers, but at the mid-level, mid-career or mid-senior level, because they are the ones who are making the decisions of large-scale monetary transaction in the direction that needs to happen. I stop over here.
No, thank you. And I know, Howard, you wanted to potentially add something, I saw.
Well, I think the point that was made there was, again, before one thinks about the recycling requirements, let's use the batteries as long as they can.
Yeah.
And you make a very good point, and I think this is where standards need to come in. And I put a proposal forward which hasn't gone very far yet about very similar things to this, is when you have your first, the standard for a battery for a car is well defined. It's done, it works. So you use that battery as long as possible in the vehicle, and when the vehicle comes to its end or you need to replace the battery, we need a set of standards to how you take that battery and how it can be used in a different part of the energy system.
Exactly.
Yes.
Now, I don't believe those standards are there, and that is certainly something that needs to be. And arguably once, and I understand this from battery experts, I'm not a battery expert by the way, but it's working on what level of performance is needed from the battery. So from a car, the battery has to be very, very quick to respond. There has to be energy straight away.
Yeah.
If you put it in a building to take renewables, to take energy from the grid, the performance is not as efficient. It doesn't need to be that good a battery because it's taking energy not as quickly. And I've also been told that there's maybe a third level. If you take that and you put it together with other batteries in a grid storage, you can also get uses there. So if we have developed the standards on the second use criteria of batteries, you could end up the situation where those batteries start off in a car and are still working 20 years in the future, not in a car, but somewhere else. Now, I'm not at all saying that we shouldn't develop a set of standards for the recycling. Absolutely, we have to do, but let's try and use those batteries as long as possible, making sure that the critical materials used to make the battery are used as long as we can.
Yeah.
Now, at the end, we have to work out how to recycle the stuff. And also a point worth making is by the time we come to that 15, 20 years, the new batteries will be completely different, of a completely different chemistry that's also being developed that hopefully will use less critical minerals.
Yeah.
So there is therefore a system which hopefully can be developed that is a lot better than the critics say that batteries are going to ruin the world.
Yeah. Yeah, just one small point on the reuse part as well. Like if you lengthen the life of the battery in different systems, the recycle technology also gets far more developed, because I am told by various battery experts that we haven't done a good job of the recycling technology discoveries or inventions, right?
Yeah.
So it's very poor over there, and we have to up the ante over that. So if we actually do it over 12, 13 years or 15 years of that, I'm hoping that that technological development will catch up, and it just give us an elbow room to prepare for a better thing. So it's also on the resource efficiency part of that, we can make a better job at that.
No, thank you. And I guess just a quick follow-up regarding the recycling and the technology advancement. What is one of the biggest issues and things that are rising in that? I know there's a lot of issues around battery recycling and fire as the safety of that recycling process, but is there also other technology barriers that are in place or not in place that is not allowing the advancement of these recyclings, especially in different countries?
So can I start?
Yeah.
First? Okay, thank you so much. Just as for the recycling part of batteries in different scenarios, I think most challenging now is it was not designed by, at the very beginning, to consider the second life of the battery. And for example, in e-vehicle batteries, okay, it could be used in a secondary life as the mobile charging station, or in my area, telecommunication base station. But the voltage of the battery is minus 48 volts, which is very specific. But it was not designed when it was born as the module of this voltage. Then when we would like to recycle, okay, now challenge comes. And how to reuse then? It should be returned to manufacturing process and do it again. Then it will be very much costable, and maybe comparing to new one, it will lose. This is the first problem. The second one, what already you mentioned on the safety, One, it is, for example, I always say it as second life of battery. Then who get the second life of battery, okay, did not know what is the situation in its first life. For example, I also seen as e-vehicles, Then they may have 80% of the battery or capacity, but of course it is useful. But we don't know about what is the situation in the previous life, how it was charged and discharged, if it is safety in every battery, unit or not. It is very important thing. So this is now industry saying that digital product passport, which is maybe one solution, and which we can also work on that part. Just to say, it should be provide any information from material level, maybe manufacturing process, maybe in the transportation, maybe in the use life, first life, everything in this information. Then who continue to get this second life could get everything, every information inside. And this is usually, standardization body have to work together to provide this information to promote the circularity. Otherwise, the system could not shake their hands, could not speak the same language, protocols, just interoperability, interfaces, everything, also safety, cybersecurity, etc. We have to give standard as a very good tool to guide this industry use. And another information for me today on behalf of CIT, which is Council of Energy Transition Engineering Group, we are now working on reuse and the recycling of batteries report. We also have considered different applications, where it could be used as a, just use it directly. But unfortunately, maybe it could not directly be used. Then we have to recycle it from the material levels or component level, etc. Then it is also another kind of reuse and the mixed recycle. But at the end, we have to also maybe something end of life treatment. Then it is the whole process now we are considering and working, and everybody to join. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything to say?
No, I think from the other perspective is that from the material perspective of the recycling component is that there are competing use as well. So for battery to battery material perspective, it's a very high standard. Like purity is one of the component where there is a challenge, right? So but there are other areas where lithium can be used and other can be used. So other materials that are being extracted can be used, and over there, the purity is not that much of a like concern, or they can actually use those things. And we should actually have, and then again, it comes down to the issue of how we set up those standards and how do we facilitate the policy focus on that region. So I would not say policy support, because policy support is a very kind of vast area and it has a big spectrum. So I would always say that policy focus particularly on those areas, and yes, we can basically do a good job of that.
Thank you. Continue.
Yes, well, I think this is a fascinating conversation, especially because we're talking really about a new industry. We're talking about a new sector that is trying to address really key issues that have to do with sustainability and climate action. So I think that following up on our colleague from India, how do we set up those standards? Those standards are new. We are still in the process of developing them, and they have to do with the technical, probably, qualifications of, or the specifications of the product. This is what we're talking about right now. But this has to do with the producer, but it also has to do with the consumer. It has to do with the producer because producers are going to be helping to develop those standards based on their experience on the technology that they're developing. There may be competing technologies depending on where you're coming from, what company you are, if you're in the US, if you're in the EU, if you're in Japan, Canada, China, whatever. So to what extent are these new standards and new technologies creating market access or market restrictions? Because standards, we know that they are even more important today than tariffs. Tariffs have been eliminated, or tariffs are very low. Tariffs may not be the real market access problem. It is standards that are the real market access. Opportunity, challenge, or not. So I think that when we're thinking about standards and talking from the UNCTAD perspective and from the development perspective, I think from UNCTAD what we're seeing is how much of these standards are set up in such a way that they will really offer the opportunity for developing countries to have access to all these different technologies, for consumers to be able to access the best and most energy efficient but also cost efficient technologies. And on the other hand, how can the setting up of standards, adaptation of standards and regulations will help us to attract trade, investment, value chains? How can we make sure that developing countries are part of the solution, not only from the consumption perspective, but also from the production and investment perspective?
Sorry, can I jump in?
Yes, jump in,
based
please.
on the previous speakers, from the policy and from also UNCTAD, crossing. And as on behalf of Ministry of, from China Information and the Industry, we are also working on that. And from the policy part, what I understand, we also, at national level, we also have some policies on circularity, because it is very important, because when we're saying as reuse, it may be cross the industry to industry. Then the policy will give very good guidance on how to go across this, collaborate, I should say, these two industries together and do this kind of circularity and a very good thing, But another thing happened, just I think for UNCTAD is very important also. It may also go across border, like in the EVs and the batteries, maybe in other countries, but it could be recycled or proceed later and take some raw materials or etc. to go back. And this is also collaboration between different countries, and the policy could consider, of course, it's a market-based investment and the benefits, but I think policy is very important. Thank you.
I just on the regional aspect, I just wanted to focus on the fact that there is a huge opportunity, I would say, particularly on the non-lithium components which are important in the batteries, because this ASEAN and Asia region is actually a big focus area of the non-battery perspective, non-lithium reserves as well, which are being kind of could be used and could be, there is a huge opportunity over there, and the regional like collaboration, that particular perspective, I think very few are actually focusing on, and could be a big area of focus, because with all the countries coming up with their storage and all of their targets putting on board, because we have seen a first wave which the policies are targeting on the renewables target. Now the second line is actually focusing on the storage targets, right? And today as Energy Day, we will be seeing some declaration on the storage. There are going to be like 5-fold or 6-fold targets going to be declared. So every country will actually follow that same trajectory. There will be a storage target, and definitely this area is going to be then followed by the several countries, including Asian countries and everywhere. So non-lithium components are going to be important, and then we have to follow up on that. So I think we should be prepared on that.
Yeah, I think there's there is an opportunity through the IEC and the ISO and UL, depending who wants to take up this issue, of looking toward what's going to happen next and what are those standards. I think you made a very good point. This is a new industry. Certainly the recycling and reuse is a new industry. And there's an opportunity looking at the forward-looking parts of the standards industry, which I'm on the IEC's board for that, is there's an opportunity now within the next couple of years to set up a real market review of what is the problem, what is the issue, what are the timescales? Am I correct that it's 20 years in the future, or am I wrong? I might be wrong. It may happen a lot quicker. But if I am wrong, which I hope I'm not, but an element of that is going to be recycling. It has to happen in the next 2 years, but the majority may be in 10 or 15.
Right.
But we do know that as we go forward, the volumes will go enormous in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time. So the opportunity in the next year or two is to set up that market study to understand the situation, not at this stage to go into the detail, because I don't think we understand enough about the detail, but let's do a market study at world level, which can only happen with the world standards bodies, supported by the national standards bodies, to come up with that market study. Now, I will certainly take this issue forward into the IEC's market board. I can't guarantee it will go ahead. I'm not the chairman of it. I can't take it forward. but I think that's the way in which we can look at this in a strategic way, without rushing forward to do a little bit here, a little bit there. There has to be a strategic vision to get all the inputs into that, as I say, to make sure it's done in an appropriate way.
No, and I definitely agree, because that's one of the main things about the Standards Pavilion, is that collaboration and ensuring that a lot of the SDOs are speaking and not trying to reinvent the wheel or have multiple standards for multiple issues under battery circularity. So it's being targeted and ensuring that it is clear, because standards, like we know, it's not always clear, especially to someone who's not been in the industry for a long time. But I did want to recircle back, especially with the market review, of how are you seeing digital product passports? I know the EU regulations coming out, and they're really tackling the batteries for these digital product passports. So in your opinions, how are you seeing that evolve?
Can I start first?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I was also some other talks on digital passport product, from UNEP. And we have very glad to see not only from EU, but also some pilot projects from China, Korea, Japan already present there. It was applied in a manufacturing process, and it is really helpful, And I think the most important thing, of course, we have to raise this awareness first on using this digital passport product, because it should be done when it was born. After that, you missed the previous information. So it is very important topic, and have to consider at the very beginning. Then, of course, on the marketing side, all the, when it's whole life cycle, all the information should be integrated. Then what you said just now is very important on the market. We have to collaborate, consider in a holistic way, I mean, the whole overall way to consider and contain all this information. Of course, already application of this data, maybe AI will jump in, because we have already lots of data in digital passport. Okay, now how to use this data to, just not modify, but promote the application of batteries in a different area. So it is a huge topic, and maybe not just to previous comment, not only from IEC, ISO, UL, but also ITU, working a lot on this digital passport product standard, and some others, of course, national level. We should have to collaborate together and release all these standards available, let them know what we have, and they will use it, then promote or accelerate our innovation. Thank you. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Shuang. Anyone else want to add in?
So I think in India, we already have a digital passport for the solar sector already. So it has already been done for, now we have done it in 2016 onwards. We are following it for the new solar panels. We couldn't do much about which are already deployed. So we are actually learning from the solar sector to the battery sector, and WRI has already launched this year in July, this battery 360 platform, which has like Indian government's think tank, which is Niti Aayog, then UNEP, and then there are several others who are actually looking into all of these, which one of them is digital passport, then how to actually reuse and all of these important issues are being considered to actually create these two issues are the focus of that. One is resource efficiency, the other one is actually circularity. So how do you address both of these in one go? And within that, one of the things that we are trying to do is not just the new batteries, but also how do you ensure the old ones are being taken care of. So that's where for the old ones, we are kind of digitizing, use the EPR principle and use some of the AI and all of those things in the context of using EPI through AI basically, and doing that thing. So there are two parts to it. The new ones are being done through digital passport. That's the principle. And the old ones are done through EPR, through AI. So that's the way we are trying to do. But this is only at the national level. If we are successful, we might, through UNEP Asia region office, we might actually try and do it in other countries as well.
Yeah, you make a very good point there. If you have a digital passport, it's like many things we're discussing on this stage.
Yeah.
It's been done somewhere. Use it somewhere else. Don't reinvent it, because there's only a small number of ways you can have a digital passport.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not very different if you do it here or there.
Yeah.
And also the real value of having digital passports for all these products is if there is going to be a reuse of the battery,
Exactly.
Yeah.
then if there's a real digital passport showing what's actually in the battery,
Yes. Yeah.
what's actually
Exactly.
in,
That's the point.
Yeah.
and that shortens and de-risks the potential user of the second use of it,
Yes.
because they will know what's actually in
Yeah.
the battery. And a further point that may be developed that wouldn't be in a static digital passport, you could have dynamic digital passports.
Yeah.
So a dynamic one would be, there may well be some performance criteria from the initial battery that can be downloaded.
Yeah.
along with the static, what's in there.
Yes.
So you would be able to find out over the 10 years in a car, you can then be able to monitor what exactly is the performance of that battery for the second use, as well as the original components within the battery.
Yeah.
Now, I have no idea if there are international standards on this. I probably don't think there are. But these are areas that, again, if there could be an international way of having a static and a dynamic digital passport, that would help everybody
Yeah.
in making the decision. And that could well be part of what I've suggested earlier, and a market study at world level would also probably include those aspects
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
So
Can I
go
jump in just based on this? As to, this, we also have challenges on cybersecurity of the data, traceability, interoperability, how to use this data, if it is safe or used by in another way to destroy everything. This is very important to consider from the standardization body. Let me stop here. I know time is limited. Thank you.
And Luz, please, I know you wanted to add in. So.
Yes. No, I want to bring the development perspective to this because I know that we have the possibility of having a digital passport. The digital passport, of course, may be an excellent idea, but we also need to consider that these standards, regulations, ways of having the traceability of these batteries, they come from the industries in countries that created them, the companies that created them. But these products end up in the global market.
Yep.
They end up in the developing world.
Yeah.
And the developing world also needs to have the capacity to understand what is a digital passport. How do you operate that? How do you process all these things? And we are talking about, I don't know, US standard, Canada standard, EU standard, China standard. That's fine. But they have global implications for consumers, for producers, for value chains, for inputs, for recycling. So I would like to complement what has already been said by the fact that we also need to think about the global market because these technologies are intended to solve global problems. They're intended to solve carbon emissions. We want to accomplish a zero-emission world. We want to accomplish the reduction of carbon emissions. Yes, and that's why these batteries were meant for, in certain ways, for certain industries. Not everything. I mean, we have cell phones and all that. That's another story. But at the end of the day, we're talking about an industry that has to do with batteries and batteries to use for the dual transition to clean energy and to the digital economy. And they have a life cycle and they have a use, no? So by not having at least an international perspective or a development perspective, we may end up creating unintended consequences for the environment, for industries, because if we don't take into consideration the fact that developing countries can also participate somehow in the production of this, in this sector, an investment in technology development, in technology transfer, in consumption, in safe consumption, and then in the recycling of those batteries, we are creating a wider gap. Mm-hmm. We are creating environmental problems. Yeah. We are detaching the development world from investment opportunities, from technological transformations that may come up. So to just come back to what was already said, these are domestic standards or these are national standards that are being issued, but we cannot ignore the international dimension. Yeah. And we need to find a way in which standards can be adopted by local governments in the development world by understanding. We need that technical capacity for these countries to have the capacity to understand what is the standard and then how do you implement it in the real world.
Yeah, I think I actually support that and I circle back on the point that I started off in my initial remarks is that we need to create a positive narrative. The moment you create that positive narrative, you are actually getting on board the smaller players, or what we fancily call the bottom of the pyramid, right? These are the ones who will actually form the inclusive part of the problem, right? And then for them, if that is the idea, because you need to understand at the end of the day, these are solutions for the clean energy sector who are already like doing a lot, and then you are imposing this on the top of it. So if that dimension is being like provided, that this is a positive narrative for them, and then the question of access becomes important, because ultimately it's a question of access for all. And the way you provide it is to more focus on the policy focus, I would say, because it all starts from your home. Because ultimately, governments need to think of its people. Like, if you don't think the way that how you are going to benefit or your people are going to be benefited, there is no point you have a high standard or a high goal of storage and 1200 gigawatts of electricity from RE, and then you don't have anything. So I think that's the driving force has to be put in place. Like you have to 3 targets currently, like if I may put it in that way. One is the RE target, second is the storage target, and third is the access target. Like all sorts of access. One is the technology access, the finance access. Only then these problems that you have highlighted, like how do you basically get this to that thing?
No, thank you. And I think we could talk about this all day.
Yeah.
To be conscious of time, I do want to open up to the audience if anyone has any questions.
Hi, good morning. My name is Colin Lowe from Your Citizens Engagement. I agree with Caitlin that I'm willing to sit here and listen to this panel for a whole day. Yeah, so, but I do have a question, which is really about international trade. Because international trade can really create an economy of scale to further help us to realize circular economy for battery. I come from Singapore. So Singapore is a small country, so we don't have the entire value chain from end to end for battery. So for Singapore or even other developing countries to get involved in this industry, so we really need to have international trade to help us to be part of it. Right, but in the meantime, we also observe that there are a lot of different international treaties with different priorities. Like, for example, the Basel Convention for the transboundary movement of hazardous substances. So which start to say that, hey, battery is a waste electrical and electronic equipment. Yeah. Right. In the meantime, but we know that sometimes batteries are not really waste; they're just used. Yeah. They can still have a second life for reuse. Right. So, what is your opinion about this situation, and what do you think the role of standards can help this? Thank you.
Maybe on Ted first.
Yes. Well, just in a nutshell, standards can be part of the solution and have to be part of the solution, because through standards you have the technical requirements that you need to fulfill in order for a product to be able to be produced, commercialized in the market. And in this case, I think we could also consider how to process a battery that has already been used. So I would say that from an international trade perspective, having those standards developed in such a way that it covers a whole new way of addressing the energy needs of the world is very important. And it's also very important that we take into consideration the different actors that take place. No?
Yes, thank you so much. Just on behalf of, I'm working in IEC, somehow ITU, and the National Standardization work, I would like to talk from the standards. The standards have different roles, but for example, take national level, we have standard on second life battery in some standards, very specific standard. This one could use for the market. If you would like to buy secondary batteries, then please reach this. And for the same, I think in an international standard, it could be a very good reference or requirement for the trade, import or export, etc. So let me stop. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw another question at the back.
Hi. So I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So my question is, I feel like we should have some more focus on how to extend the first life
Yeah.
rather than just the second life. Now you mentioned bringing the developing countries into perspective, so I'll tell you the perspective from Pakistan. If we take our laptop, if the battery life has gone down to say 30%, the laptop guy, not the official manufacturer, okay, but the laptop repair guy is going to recondition a battery. He's going to take out the dead cells. He's going to put in some new cells in there, and suddenly we are getting about 60% capacity back, or 70% capacity back, right? So I think we should also look a little bit at how the first life can be extended. Okay, where all they're doing is taking out the dead cells and putting back new cells in there, so that same battery in almost every component can still be reused for a longer period of time. Because batteries at the end of the day, we talk about batteries, but we have to remember they're made up of cells, right?
Yeah.
Which are very easy to just take out and replace. So maybe a standardization process that also looks at how either batteries become rechargeable after where you can gain the capacity back, or where you are doing the replace the dead cell technique to elongate the first life. If you have any opinions on that.
Can I jump in? Just based on my experience from digital technology, now we have some application, based on your date and the working condition, like they can foresee or some failure first, and to adjust the working environment and the workload, charging current, etc., to make first life cycle a little bit longer. This is our case, and I think it is usually works with our development of AI, with the modeling and the considering further. Thank you. Yes, yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add? No, I think we have time for another question.
Mine was really an extension of this, and to say, when those cells are recombined, is this information then transparent? Because I'm not sure the digital product passport would then get down to the granularity of the cell. Maybe at some point. And then the other thing is do we need qualified folks to do this reassortment of cells, putting one cell aside, what we're going to do with that one, the one that's bad, I don't know. Maybe something to do with Basel, but as we recombine the ones that are good, was it a qualified repair person that did this? And I feel like in the developing countries, the vulnerable populations and emerging economies, I feel like those are the ones that are, I'm just looking forward, and I would be interested with UNCTAD's perspective is, what are you seeing on the ground? Because right now, there is a sense that we need to repair this stuff. This stuff's expensive. So you want to go out and buy a specialized cell, and then someone's going to start moving them around. Are these going to, is the whole unit going to have to be recertified again? Supplier's declaration seems kind of risky for these types of products. So certainly we would want, does this go in the direction of third party? And what does the consumer know? Do they know that it's been reimagined essentially, and the risks associated, and particularly for the whole system, including the charger, the device, and how everything works together?
If I can maybe,
Yeah, you can jump in.
I think these are all very, very valid points, which makes the issue even more complex than perhaps I thought it was. And I think this really does encourage me to really consider, then really does need to be a fundamental review of the standardization of batteries in all uses. Because the standards of a battery identified in a laptop in Pakistan is very different to a car battery in the US. Or it's just completely different. And also we have to look at the fact that we are moving towards solid state batteries in many areas. and solid state batteries is a whole different,
Yeah, another thing.
completely different in terms of how they are constructed. And you can't repair them as much, but do you need to? So I do think I'm coming up with the same answer to every question. There needs to be a fundamental review of the standards regarding to batteries now and moving into the future, and almost a completely different section looking at batteries, because it is probably the biggest challenge going forward in the energy industry, because it is changing so quickly.
Safety.
And
is-
the safety of it, and if you get it wrong, it can be disastrous.
Yes, yeah.
But it's so positive if you get it right.
Can I jump in just one sentence based on our experience? We have this kind of, just to try, put different batteries, different types of batteries, but not so much completely different. Like lithium ion, different manufacturer, different brand, etc. This usually needs the BMS system, very smart, to control every unit. And with saying this, it also costs too much cost at this stage when we try to do comparing with the new ones. Because it's like process, you have to take it out from the module and put it together. It is really complicated, and we have this kind of certification in China to get if this complex one is good or not. But this is under process or under research now, ongoing work. Thank you.
Just to answer your question, at UNCTAD we have, among other issues, the consumer protection and competition policy area, in which we are looking exactly at these issues. We know that there's a lot of technical capacity at the regulatory and legal perspective, but also from the human perspective, instead of in the way that skills are developed to be able to have the kind of people that are capable of developing this sector in the developing world.
Oh, thank you. I know we have additional questions, but I do have to close off. I want to thank you, each of our panelists, so much. We are going to be here, so please approach to...
She's raising long hands, so if it...
No, but we don't have...
I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. We are going to be here. Please come up and ask additional questions. Really encourage it. And I want to say thank you to every single one of you. I appreciate it. And I think we could talk about this a lot more. So we will be here, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a picture? I need a picture
a picture.
for
Yeah.